to be here on a Friday. It's gorgeous outside, and to have you all here with us this morning. So our first panel this morning that we lovingly titled Masters of Excellence Industry Insights. And when we kind of were thinking about people for this panel, we wanted to make sure it was people that we knew were going to be data collectors, good communicators, and had been in this business for a little bit to kind of give you guys insights into the Wagyu world. So we have Ray Thomas, Jim Skartvedt, Reid Martin, and Clem Kuns, and I'm going to let them all introduce themselves and kind of what they do specifically. So you want to go right to left, left to right? Whoever wants to start. Clem?
Good morning, Clem Kuns here. Primarily Farms, we're in Indiana. We've been coming to this addiction for 13 years now. We raise full-blood black Wagyu and focus primarily on direct-to-restaurant sales, and we do some retail and online sales as well. But somewhere around here, there's my wife back there. She actually runs the operation and tells me what to do and say. We've got 3 kids. They help out with it. That's enough.
My name is Reid Thomas, and I'm with Santos Patronos Wagyu out of
Seguin, Texas, and we raise Japanese or black Wagyu, and we have our own retail store there in Seguin. We do mostly direct to consumer, not a lot of food service, some, and then we also have a lodge that we host corporate retreats, family vacations, and host dinners, cooking classes, and just different culinary experiences.
Good morning. I'm Reid Martin from Lone Mountain Wagyu and Lone Mountain Cattle Company in north central New Mexico. We ranch full-blood black Wagyu cattle on a 28,000-acre ranch. Bob Estrin was the founder, an early kind of, I guess not pioneer, but the next wave of Wagyu breeders in the U.S. And we have two companies, a beef company, which is Lone Mountain Wagyu, which I came to in a sales capacity, I guess like 9 years ago. So I've been coming to these meetings for quite a while now too, because I was deemed the representation from the ranch and from the cattle company. And in that business, we have an e-commerce platform where we sell direct to consumer around the country from distributing from Nebraska. And we also work with some third-party online retailers. But a bigger business is selling to distributors that wholesale to restaurants and very little to retail. And on the cattle side, we market bulls, semen embryos, and females. I know a lot of the people in the room who own some of them. So, very excited to have this conversation this morning about the future and the current situation with Wagyu.
My name's Jim Skartvedt. We have we're a new livestock company. I've been part of the Wagyu world for about 25 years now. We manage multiple cattle supplies for various meat companies, mainly on the F1 side of things. We manage genetics. We manage the nutrition. We do make sure the affidavits and all the paperwork matches and doing all that. So that's a 40,000-foot view of what we do, and like I said, 98% of what we do is F1 Wagyu, American Wagyu.
Awesome, thank you. So this morning, as panelists, I have a list of questions I want to ask, but please feel free during the whole entire panel to raise your hand, and we have our intern, and he'll run around with any questions. So I'm going to open it up with questions, or I can start with one, if anyone has one. All right, I'm going to start in then. So my first question I have for these lovely gentlemen is, how do you see consumer demand for Wagyu evolving in the next 5 to 10 years, both in the U.S. and in the global market? No, I'm whoever grabs the mic first.
Well, I can take a crack at it here. I think that it's very exciting, what's coming and where we are right now in terms of interest in beef, interest in protein, as it relates to the American diet specifically, but also globally. And as we saw, I think yesterday, that even with these high prices, the demand continues to persist. I do think that there's a threat of it becoming too expensive potentially, and that we haven't gotten to yet. For Wagyu, I think that what makes our product really special, obviously, is the lipid profile is really unique. And I think that as consumers learn more about that, they're going to be more interested in our products, not less interested. So I see that as a positive and a big growth opportunity for Wagyu in general.
One thing I want to add to that too, I think with the why maybe our top side hasn't hit yet, because we're starting to look at protein as a health factor, not just a consumption, right? And when people are going to spend money on their health, they're not that worried about price. So I think that's part of the reason we've been able to kind of break through some barriers that have historically been there. And that especially, I think, is true in the Wagyu realm. I think we have to do a better job of promoting the health factors that we have here that Reid had mentioned, because that's now as a society, we're looking at protein as a health factor, right? Versus just an energy source. So I think that's something we got to do a much better job
at. For sure in the US, I think it will grow. Just in our small town in Seguin, it's mostly blue collar workers. And we've noticed that they are open and want to pay the price for high quality Wagyu, and because they want that culinary experience, they want something that's different. I think it's only just gonna grow. I have a lot of family in Mexico, and my fiance is from Mexico, so even there, we also see it growing in a lot of restaurants and the high-end ones. Just continuing seeing Wagyu offered there, mostly Australian, but hoping to expand into the Mexico side.
I agree with everything everyone said here. I think health factors, getting the awareness out there. I like to say that there's more people that want Wagyu than realize they want Wagyu. Once you try it, you're, wow, this is great, right? And so I think what Shane put up there yesterday, this curve of over time, we're still a small market. Sure, it's somewhat mainstream on a crossbred product out there, but it's far from being in every Outback Steakhouse. And so I just use Outback Steakhouse. They say choice is kind of their standard steak. Well, prime is the new choice, right? So I think there's a lot of runway out there, and it's not just in one market segment. It's across the board. And like was alluded to here with, even blue collar folks, it's a generational thing too, I think. The generation of my age and on down, people are interested in having something that is better, even if it means less of it. So I think there's a lot of runway here. Everything from a premium full blood down to it made prime, but that flavor factor, health benefits, that crossbred product is still a big boost.
And I wanted to mention one more thing that didn't get mentioned by the group, which is that this administration and like the Maha movement that's really taking hold. This is huge for beef and for Wagyu, because I'm looking around the room, and there's a lot of people who have been in this industry for a long time, and we all know that beef wasn't always viewed this way like it is in this moment. And it's not just the Maha movement, it's not just the current administration, it's just the kind of the zeitgeist of beef in America, and it's really having its moment. And I don't see it waning really specifically, but it's definitely at a really high point right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think another point is the science has caught up a bit. I think people are not focused on, lean beef is good. Let's try to expand our horizon for sure. I agree with everything. Any questions, or do you want me to move on to another one? Tina, hold on real quick for the mic. He's quick, I promise. He'll get there.
So regarding profit margins, how would you compare the private market as opposed to supplying to restaurants?
Well, I think direct to consumer is the best and probably offers the highest profit margin. When you sell to food service, they're looking for a discount wholesale rate. And with the high quality or the more premium cuts that they want, well, that takes out from the rest of the carcass that you have to figure out on how to sell, mostly the ground beef or the B cuts. So if you can get to the direct to consumer, then I think it's the best.
I think that it depends a lot on like your operation and what you have available to you. And so I think that for Lone Mountain, because of our relative scale, that we have a mix, and that the wholesale business is incredibly important for us in this moment, and is scalable in a way that maybe e-commerce is more challenging for Lone Mountain. Now that being said, I do agree with Ray that there is more profit opportunity in direct-to-consumer, but it just really depends on how you go to market, because if you have a farmer's market stand, for example, we were just talking about that this morning, then there's a really great opportunity to have like a direct relationship with your customers, and you can really grow that way. But with like our situation where we're doing drop shipping, there's a lot of costs associated with that. And so one of the things that I really love about working with food service is that we put it on a pallet and they pay for the shipping and they really market it. And so for us, that's a really exciting and emerging space, because the larger Wagyu companies have really kind of owned the food service category, and they still do for Wagyu. But there's a place for a company like Lone Mountain or other maybe more mid-market or small market Wagyu companies to find a voice in a market with a food service distributor and get really good pricing. And hopefully good profits, Tina.
Any more questions? Oh, Clem, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to echo pretty much exactly what Reid said. Is it depends on your operation, and we'll probably get into that more later, but there are so many facets of this breed, so many different ways to do things, whether it's production or genetics or whatever it may be, even in how you market the beef. I think it's pretty established that direct to consumer on the retail side, there is a profit margin there, but there's also a labor factor, and there's a lot of logistics and a lot of work, and it is more finicky, for lack of a better term. It can be volatile, 1 week people want something, and the next week they don't, and Super Bowl's coming and they stock up, and the next week they don't want anything. But when you can put a whole carcass on a pallet and deliver it to the restaurant, and you collect one check with one person, right? That's pretty appealing. And so it does depend on the operation, and there's a huge benefit to that direct to restaurant, I think.
All right, I might piggyback off that with a question. Y'all have different strategies when it comes to your businesses. What have you seen succeed in building trust and brand recognition in your specific spaces? Jim?
For us, we've had some challenges beyond just be pretty transparent over this last bit because of the imports that come in and sucked up a lot of the market, from the Australian side. So a lot of our end users didn't honor their contracts, and we've had some challenges that way. And now in the last 30 days, it flipped again. And now the producers can sell their cattle, for the same money, because that conventional prices come up and match the Wagyu. We don't have that spread there anymore. And so now they're like, why would I feed them another 4 to 6 months to get the same money? So that's been one of a major challenge for us. And so it's something that, we used to be handshake deals pretty much on everything, and people followed through. And now the dollars we're dealing with and the pressure people are getting from the banks, you definitely need to be putting things down on paper and taking care of stuff that way. So that kind of answer what you're
No,
looking
you're
for?
good. Yeah, perfect. Do you want to go, Reid?
Yeah, I guess for us, there's two components of that. One is the cattle business, which I think, again, looking around the room, everyone, a lot of people in this room know this, which is like if you market bulls and females, they need to do what they're purported to, and as they continue to, then I think that we're going to have customers that are happy and returning, and that's a pretty straightforward directive. On the beef side, it's kind of amazing because it's one of the best products to sell as a salesperson. I worked in the grass-fed business for almost 10 years before I worked in Wagyu, and so I had a lot of experience with upset chefs. And I mean, I'm not here to throw shade on the grass-fed space completely, but it's hard in food service, and there's a lot of people who maybe don't prefer this or that. But when it comes to Wagyu, I think you just need to identify what your customer wants and try to produce that the best you can, and then do that every day and do it as consistently as possible with as little variance, which sounds hard, and it is, but the breed helps us a lot, I think, in that. And I think that's been a real a big help for us having really long-term beef customers. That being said, we've also had challenges, and we've had to, in some cases, go to different plants because there wasn't availability, and that becomes problematic. And you really need to have that connection with your customers so that they can be patient with you when maybe a box of cheek meat comes and it's not packaged the way they're used to it because you're working with a different plant. So we're asking a lot of them sometimes, I think. And so you really do need to deliver on the quality in order to have them long term.
For sure, consistency and transparency, I think, is probably two very important things. With us, we always encourage the customers that come to our store to come tour the ranch so they can see the operation, see where the beef comes from, and they can just learn the story of the product that they're buying. We've noticed that when they come into the store, they're not just spending 1 to 2 minutes just picking a steak or picking some jerky up and walking out. They're actually wanting to listen, wanting to learn more about what they're buying, and each customer stays for 10 to 15 minutes. And so it's more interaction, more transparency. And on the food service, I would say the consistency, like Reid said, is important. Some of the chefs that have approached us or restaurants have complained about wanting to switch over because the product that they were getting was always inconsistent. And in restaurants, once you serve them a certain steak, then they need to expect that every single time. So just have to really hit on the consistency part.
Consistency. We've heard it a couple times. I just say it again. I think whatever your product level is, if you're selling a prime product, you need to make it consistent, and it's hard. If you want to do ultra premium and you're looking for a 35, 40% IMF, you need to do it consistently. If you sell them something for $100 that's 30% IMF, and next week it's $100 and it's 20% IMF, there's going to be a problem. Maybe not the first time, but it will happen. And almost just as bad is you sell your $100 item that they're expecting at 20%, and 1 week they get a 30%. They love it. That's great. Everybody was happy, but guess what they want the next time? They want that 30% again for the same price. So consistency is just huge at whatever level it's at. And no, I'm not saying one level is better than another. I'm just saying, is the customer getting what they expected? And I use this example sometimes. If you go on to some online, TripAdvisor or whatever else there may be, what's the best restaurant in town? You go some towns, you'll actually see McDonald's is at the top of the list, right? How's that happen? How do we get like a 4.8 rating at a McDonald's? That's not the best restaurant in town. Well, it's the expectation, right? People expected, a McDonald's to be kind of slow and nothing special, and they got there and the people were friendly and they took care of them, and had nothing to do with the McDonald's burger being better than the steakhouse down the street. So that consistency, I think, and meeting expectations is huge. And then along with that, I think, is ethics. I think Winston Churchill one time said that when he looks for someone to hire, he looks for someone with energy, intelligence, and ethics, and he'll take any two, but one of them has to be ethics. And you need to be prepared for the animal to be a failure. This thing came out, it didn't grade. Don't ship it to the consumer or the customer, because you're going to ruin yourself. And you may get away with it once, you may get away with it twice, but and that applies whether it's beef or genetics, whatever the case may be. I mean, we've shipped animals before, and like 2 weeks later, the animal dies. It's like, I didn't have anything to do with that, but we've bit the bullet before and swapped out an animal. So I think this applies to any business, I guess. This just happens to be cattle and beef that we're talking about, but any business, be ready to make it right.
Totally agree with that. Kind of building off of that, maybe ethics and trust and collaboration. Just a question for all of you. How important is collaboration just within our industry here in the US to ensure its long-term success? Maybe kind of twofold within the breeders here and maybe collaboration wider within US ranchers who maybe aren't Wagyu producers yet.
I'll jump on that one. I think collaboration's huge, and that's what our business does. That's what Renew Livestock does. You know, we try to keep the independent producer independent. That's our goal. And when we can have a solid market on the fat side, it trickles down then, so then we add value to all the bulls in this industry, right? When we can go out and make commercial cattle, F1s, on a weekly, daily, monthly basis, that adds value to that bottom line. So like Clem said before, it doesn't matter what level we're at, but that F1 program gives us a baseline to where all the other bulls get more value. So the collaboration is huge there. And then going to the next step and making sure that the feedlots understand the importance of data retention and doing those kind of things, and then say all the way to the packing house and getting that collected. I mean, it's ultimately we're trying to make because we're not big enough as an industry to have there's a couple big packers in this now, and they're integrated. But then for us, everyone else staying independent too, we need to be able to work together and pull in the same direction and not against each other. And those big packers are a big part of also the exposure. I know Agribeef's here, Imperial's here. We appreciate what they do, and there's some new ones in the marketplace now, hence why we have a shortage now. We went from way overfed 6 months ago to way short because we have some new players in the market. And so that all adds to the value of all this and working together.
That's really a great answer by Jim, and I think that when I think about this question, I want to maybe consider more on the end of the chain and the beef marketing, and I think that there's a huge opportunity still, and a growing opportunity for us to do a better job as an industry, better job as individual companies, working with those food service professionals, like I was mentioning earlier, who are just looking for a solution for their customers a lot of times. And so I know there's a lot of talk about Aussie product in the U.S., Japanese product in the U.S., and what does that mean for domestic producers? Well, it's really a kind of strong competitive factor, and you've got people out there selling product that are just looking for solutions for specific customers. So if we can come to these professionals with more comprehensive solutions and supply, I can't meet their needs necessarily. So I guess the point is that in food, what I see in the market in food service is that there's a lot of educated people, but there's still a lot of people a lot of businesses that are very much in the very early years with Wagyu, with domestic Wagyu specifically, and that I would like to see more representation in this room of people who champion our product in the food space, because the Chef's Warehouse of the world, the Allen brothers of the world, because they are really like kind of carrying the water for us in a lot of ways, and they're like the person who's telling the restaurateur or the chef about what we're doing. So I would seek further collaboration that way, and that's something that Lone Mountain works on every day.
Awesome.
Well, sorry, a rising tide lifts all ships, and we wouldn't be where we are today without many of you and the relationships and the friendships that we've developed. So the collaboration is very important. I think also not just within the producers, but within the associations as well. I think there needs to be some way where we can all work together towards a common goal. Don't think needs to be a lot of division on which side you're on or who you're with. Both offer, or all associations offer, different tools, different resources that us producers can use to enhance our herds, to enhance our beef quality, and to enhance our product.
I think, yeah, collaboration is huge. There's, like we said before, there's a lot of demand, there's a lot of runway. I don't think there's, should be a risk of really over competition. There's just a lot of opportunity there, and I think somebody said yesterday they come to these things to learn what not to do. That's part of collaboration too, not just finding the golden nugget or the unicorn there, but hey, I tried this and boy, that didn't work, or why didn't that work? That's always an interesting thing too, because one thing that works for one person may not work for the next, depends on their operation and their setup. So collaboration internally for sure, and I totally echo again what Reid was saying, and maybe we cross minds a lot here, but there's a whole world out there in the restaurant food service industry and chefs out there that every one of them's trying to stand out in some way, and I think, what do they say, restaurants fail at twice the rate of other businesses. So if you're going to compete with the chain restaurant and you have your own owner-operated or chef-operated restaurant, what can I do to get people in here on a consistent basis? And I think this room here is a solution to help these people be successful. And so learn their business, learn their challenges as best you can, and give them opportunity to try something new.
I totally agree with that. When we go to bigger U.S. industry, beef industry like NCBA, when you talk to ranchers, they don't really have a pulse on consumers. That's really kind of unique within the Wagyu industry. So we have kind of I think a big opportunity for collaboration from start to finish, and you guys really are already kind of there. I think just working towards it, we're very unique in that way.
Hannah, I just wanted to add that I think that, informationally for the people in the room who may be starting a beef business or are new, is there's no time that's better than the beginning to establish these relationships, because when you're bringing a new idea, it's excitement, chefs are, like Clem said, they're looking for an advantage, they're looking to do something that's different, and they want to be part of something. So involve them in your process, and I promise you they will reward you with loyalty and a great customer if you deliver on the promises you make. But it's to really capture that excitement, because the Wagyu beef is exciting.
It is. It's super fun. Any questions real quick before I move on to a different topic? Hold on. He's running. We got people online. They need to hear you.
Yeah, I'd like you guys' opinion on where we are today as an industry versus where we should be. And on the note of collaboration, I constantly preach that every Wagyu association outside Japan needs to be working together. The Japanese industry still does not recognize our industry. I don't know if all of you know that or not. My next trip will be my 50th trip over there since April '94. They still do not recognize that we exist as an industry. The Australians, in my opinion, feel like that we bungled a tremendous opportunity. At one time, most of the genetics that the Australians used came from us. Now most of the genetics are coming from the Aussies. So where we are versus where we need to be, I would like you guys' assessment of that subject. Thank you.
Hard hitter. Go ahead. Clem, Jim?
I think from my perspective, going off what Dr. Horner said there, I think one thing we've maybe not done a great job with as an industry is pulling together, and especially in the data side of things. That's probably where the Australians have excelled at. So I think that's something that collaborating in terms of building our herd book, building our powers and numbers, pulling in the same direction. I think that's something we can do a lot better as a unit.
Yeah, the fastballs from Jimmy over there. I'm going to keep my answer kind of specific to something that I think I hold sort of dear in all of this process that we could do better at, that we're maybe lacking at, which was talked about yesterday with the gentleman from the USDA talking about grading and Then there was a gentleman from Australia who spoke up and said, well, in our system, we're able to get $3,000 more per carcass on the high end versus the low end of the full bloods. And that should resonate with everyone in the room, especially people who are marketing full blood beef, because right now, we basically either have our beef either makes the grade and is Lone Mountain product and gets sold for a specific price. We do have the turquoise trail. Go online, check it out. That's the more premium version, but it's a small production. And then what doesn't make it, we kind of just figure out what we can do with it. We call it friends and family. We sell it for less money. But I do believe that there's an opportunity for us to have a much more robust marketplace with more sophisticated grading, with more sophisticated pricing mechanisms that really reward the genetics that we're putting into these cattle, because you're talking about, $200,000, $300,000 females, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 bulls. You got to make quite a bit of hay with those animals in order for them to pencil. So I think that there is opportunity for those cattle to pencil and to make money for people, but it would work better in a system where the producer, whoever it is, whether it's them or someone down a customer of theirs, is being rewarded with a supply chain that is more defined by quality, and where there's a more kind of robust marketplace around how beef finds where it belongs. Because if we produce beef that's like A5 quality, then it would probably normally would exceed A5 pricing. But now it's being marketed just as American Wagyu beef, which is doesn't have the is not a market leader in terms of pricing. So that's all I would say on that.
Definitely think we're a little behind on a lot of things. Data collection, and I think probably the most important thing is the grading. I don't think adding those sub-variants of prime will mean much, because when you go to a grocery store, when you go to a restaurant, it doesn't say moderately abundant, or it just says prime, right? So that's what you're paying for. I think Wagyu is just so different that it has to be something completely different from what's already out there, based off of a grading system where you can get those premiums for the higher marbling percentages that you do get. I think Booth Creek does an excellent job with their grading system where it's very transparent and very easy from the 10, 20, 30, 40. And there you can see what you're paying for, the percentage that you're getting. And if you want to go for that higher end, you have that option. And it allows the consumer and it allows the producer to speak and be transparent on what they're serving and what they're paying for.
Jimmy, we need to have you not ask questions without getting them filtered first. I just made a note here that if you're in any business and you feel like that you have reached the top and you are way ahead of the competition and so on, be careful. Always be careful, because at some point somebody's going to catch up with you. If you have enough margin, you're making enough money to be attractive to somebody else is going to try to do it too. So I don't think we should ever rest and say, yeah, we've reached it, we're good, everything's great. There's nothing we could do better. So there's always things we can do better. Quality grades and data are the two things that come to mind. And there's a long trail on both of those items, but I think that's been covered pretty well. The thing I would mention here, and I saw Randy and Kylie walk in there, and they got a sale, and Sheila does too. So I don't mean this in a way of don't buy genetics and don't pay a lot for them. Do that, pay a lot and buy a lot of genetics, but focus on the beef. This breed came out of Japan for a purpose, to produce beef that was a better quality than what the Japanese could otherwise get from America. And it's all about the beef. We wouldn't know about it today if it didn't stand out in the flavor profile, not just the marbling. It's more than just the marbling. The flavor profile and the texture. Focus on the beef. There's a lot of genetics in this breed, and then as Jimmy alluded to, they all came through the United States first, so we do have a bigger genetic base, but it has to be utilized and it has to be fed out before you know which ones are the better ones to keep going with. So focus on the beef. Obviously it takes the genetics, but if your husbandry and your feeding isn't premium, you're not going to get a premium product with a premium genetic.
Awesome. If I can piggyback off of that as the genetic person, you are, when you have genetics, that's about 30-40% of what you're seeing in your phenotype. The other 60-70% is management, feeding, all of that environmental effect. So I totally agree with that. You've got a lot of factors at play, but you get them all running in the right direction, could really have an amazing product. So kind of going in that direction a bit, I guess, how are advancements in genetics and data collection really shaping your Wagyu breeding decisions and maybe what you're seeing, the trends out in the industry right now?
For us, we've gone from, way back when it started, early 2000s, you're going past, 30 months, even on the F1s. Now we're down in the low 20s, right? In terms of making F1s that are still going prime and doing well. So I think the genetic progress there is awesome when you think about it. It's pretty easy to get discouraged, but we have made a lot of hay that way. So I think if we can keep making those decisions, breeding decisions off of where we need to go in terms of feed efficiency, in terms of rate of gain, while maintaining a high quality product, that's really where I think, in my opinion, where we need to go.
Yeah, we've also seen sort of steady increases in the recent years of our IMF average, or digital marbling percentage average, and we've also seen an increase in carcass weights. And I think that it's really critical as an industry that we produce balanced cattle that are adaptable to a lot of environments. And so I would just urge our industry and the people in this room to, consider, what that means. And when you chase one trait, I think, and you leave others behind, that's a big pitfall for this breed. And yeah, I think that obviously I'm on the shoulders of Bob and pretty much everyone in this room. And if you don't know, Bob created really sophisticated data collection systems for our business. So we have, every carcass record from every animal going back to the dam sire, the dam, all collated, and this crazy pivot table. And it's really valuable information, and it helps a lot with, the past helps us, in terms of making decisions for the future. But we have to go faster now, and I think there's a lot of pressure to kind of chase in some ways, and we have to continue to try to improve in every way we can, but also recognize that what we're doing sometimes is the right thing, and we don't need to change dramatically.
I think the data collection will kind of helps take the guessing out of it. It's certainly helped us with data we've collected and seen, and other data that friends of ours have shared that we've been able to see. It kind of just steers you towards a direction that you want to go, regardless of what either EBVs or EPDs say. Those are just tools. So data, the phrase we've heard is data is king. And on the retail side, the data certainly helps us because we're able to see different times throughout the year what are our best sellers, what is not selling so much, what do we need to focus more on, how do we need to shift the way the product looks in the store, so what people see first. So just data.
Yeah, if you don't collect the data, you can't do something with it. You can't analyze it. So, and what data will we wish in 20 years we would have been collecting now, So try to collect as much information as you can. 13 years ago when we started on this thing, it's amazing how much data is out there now. We talk about we don't have enough data and we need more data and all this, and that's true. You can't hardly have too much data, assuming it's good data. That's the other thing, is garbage in's garbage out. And so if it's cherry picked or something like that, it's not worth a whole lot. But back when Jerry was out here trying to figure out what the best bull was 20, 30 years ago, what do you have to go on, right? we have a huge advantage today. We have a lot more information, but there's still more to learn. But these carcass cameras, they're finally coming around to be moderately useful. Ultrasound data, right? There's enough data out there that's useful. So even if you're a small producer, you can get contemporary groups with ultrasounds that maybe you can't get a 20, 30 steer contemporary group for carcass animals, but you sure can do your ultrasounds at yearling, and that's useful data. That's important. And the more of that you collect and correlates with things that ultimately are finished out, now they can back in what the ultrasound data means more. So you can get information and answers sooner. Of course, that all goes into the EPDs and the genomic analysis with, single step and all this type of thing. I mean, my little way of thinking about these genomic analysis today is that was AI before AI was a cool word, So use the data.
Single step still beats out AI, guys. So it's pretty powerful stuff. They haven't beat me yet. Okay, well, I have like some kind of finishing up questions, but before we kind of get to that piece, does anyone else have any more questions for these wonderful guys here? Are you gonna grill him?
We were watching the Farm Report a few weeks ago, and they had a new pork advertisement on there where instead of like, oh, there's a steak, there's a tri-tip, there's, this, they were actually encouraging people to utilize pork in a lot of different dishes. And I just wondered if if you guys see the Wagyu industry doing something like that.
I'm not on the meat side, but part of the reason I think they got to do that on pork because the pork doesn't have any flavor anymore. It would be my opinion, but so that would be the first thing. I guess the second thing is, I think we have some great opportunities that way, and I'm sure these guys have done a better job with that than not. But we don't need to do much with our meat, right? I mean, we do a little farmers market thing every now and then with my kids, and we'll hand out hamburger, and people can't believe what it tastes like because they haven't had hamburger like that, right? I mean, they get 2 steps down, and all of a sudden they turn around and come back. So, but yeah, I think there's definitely ways we can utilize it, and I think there's ways we can have chefs, especially in the chef world. But that's a little bit out of my realm. But I would say where pork really messed up, in my opinion, is in the 90s when they focused on leanness of it. They lost all their flavor. They did the single trait selection thing that Reid had talked about. And I think we got to be careful with that here, that we're not single trait selecting just for marbling and losing all the production stuff too. So.
Sorry, Jim, that I kicked that to you. This is something that we are hyper focused on at Lone Mountain, especially with our e-commerce, because we do like a lot of education, a lot of email marketing, things like that to our customers. And so, we're often talking about, using an Instapot or different lower cost items that can be utilized at home, so that it doesn't have to be that Wagyu's not for family time or for something that's more like a weeknight kind of meal. So we are really focused on that. And then we make jerky, which is a utilization of the rounds, obviously, and that is something that is a real big value add for us, but also our customer who wants to have that healthy snack on the go. So there are a lot of different uses outside of like a 3 Michelin star tasting menu. And I would also add that in the recent years, never like before, and I know this is not consistent with everyone's experience, have I seen more interest in like variety meat, liver, beef heart, all the tongues. So a lot of the chefs, a lot of the tastemakers are actually already doing some of this work for us because they want to use different things, want to use more interesting things that you might find like at a chain restaurant. So I guess maybe because we're more in the niche category, we're already seeing a lot of ingenuity in terms of utilization on the carcass. But I do think that it's again, a tremendous opportunity for Wagyu. And I can't really speak to this because we haven't effectively done this, but I know there's a lot of people in the room who have done a really good job with like tallow. That's incredible to be able to capture that much value in the fat, which is of course pretty valuable. So I think that's another opportunity of selling the whole animal. But in terms of the beef checkoff, they're always doing this kind of work, but not for Wagyu usually, but for beef in general.
So what has helped us a lot is at our ranch we offer, we can family vacations, corporate retreats, and dinners and culinary experiences and cooking classes. And what we found to be best is instead of giving everyone a ribeye, a strip, or a fillet, is we'll do a steak tour or steak flight. And we'll always include a ribeye or strip so that way people are trying something that they're familiar with, but then introducing two or three other cuts that people may have never heard of and letting them get to try it, explaining where it comes from, the flavor profile. And sure enough, what we've noticed is once they've tried those cuts, we see them back at the store purchasing those lesser known cuts that they tried. And also with the meals that we do, we always make sure that Wagyu is somewhere included, whether it's in the salad, the appetizer, the main course, the sides, or we're looking on how to add it into the desserts. Do come from a little bit of a culinary background. I did culinary school in Italy, so that's kind of been my main focus on is how to kind of teach and educate, the average consumer on what they can do with Wagyu, from simple basic recipes that just require meat, just substituting it with Wagyu and seeing how much more flavor can be added to it.
I think in the Texas tour they had Wagyu ice cream. Yeah, so you can really, you can stretch it.
Yeah, so the higher the grade, I like to say that the more the animal grows. You have a 1,000-pound carcass. If it's a choice carcass, it has a certain amount of value, a certain amount of usefulness. You move up in your grades, there are B cuts, so to speak, that can now have value that didn't have value at that level before. So this, basically everything that's been said here is there are center of the plate opportunities in the Wagyu carcass that's not there in your traditional carcass. And so things like the top round, one of the first few times we experimented with trying to do something with that to make an actual center of the plate experience, which seems kind of crazy. This chef that had actually done some butchering himself, he looks at this top round roast and he said, wow, there's actually marbling in this thing. Well, how many breeds can say that they have marbling in their round that's actually any amount noticeable, let alone flavor, right? So you can take a top round on a highly marbled Wagyu, sous vide that, slice off steaks, sear them, and they taste better than an Outback Steakhouse ribeye. Not saying that's a real tall bar, but hey, it's top round, right? They actually taste good. One thing I've seen restaurants do, which we sell halves and wholes to the restaurants only, we stuck to our guns, and so far it works. We keep scaling a little more and a little more. And so how do you do that? Help them find these periphery cuts and do more with it. And so Wagyu terrine, they're using oxtail and cheek and other things like that. There's a lot of flavor in these things. You just got to get it tender. Just because it's a Wagyu doesn't mean it doesn't have tough meat. So some of that, tenderize that, and the flavor's there, right? So, of course, the tallow. And then there's this satiation thing. If chefs can somehow convey to the consumer, yeah, it's only 5 ounces, but you're going to be happy when you're done. Most steak eaters see the 5 ounce coming out at $80 or more, and they think I'm screwed. Who did this to me? But the satiation's a real factor, the health factor and satiation, that makes this stuff go further.
I just wanted to ask everyone, is everyone's favorite cut a ribeye up here, or no? Yeah? Still? Do you have a specialty cut that you guys like? Clem?
I'm not the chef, and he's not kicking me. But we actually, before this, we was talking about a Denver steak, the serratus ventralis muscle. My wife, that's her favorite. Mine, I like it for a couple bites, Then I want to go more to a skirt, maybe in a flank, a bavette. I love a bavette. But, if somebody wants to pay that much for the ribeye, I'm going to sell it to them. I'm going to eat the other stuff. Yeah,
definitely say the Denver steak has been very eye-opening. I guess there's a lot of unique ways that you can use it for different ways of cooking. And before that, it was outside skirt. If you've never tried that, it is, I think, one of the best cuts there is, and not a lot of people know about it. So it's usually a butcher's cut, so it's not something we sell a lot because we eat it ourselves.
I think that I don't know if it's eye-opening. It's also jaw-dropping is the Denver steak, and you just want to put it all in your mouth. It's so good. I love wine and I love coffee, and so I think there's so much nuance between the different parts of the carcass, and it delivers in a different way and different applications. But if I think about like my favorite experiences with Lone Mountain, I mean, obviously like a tomahawk shared by like 2 to 4 adults is awesome. I remember I sent one to a family friend. I grew up in a ranching community in Northern California, and I sent a tomahawk to some friends who helped babysit my kids, and they said, "Oh, Reid, the steak was good, but we couldn't finish it." I'm like, the two of you were trying to take down the 42-ounce, super prime, because they didn't understand the application. So I was like, oh shoot, I should have told them. But I think that I'm gonna copy Clem. Boring, but my most memorable like bite of Lone Mountain was a sirloin flap, better known as a bavette in the chef world, and it was so good and incredible in terms of balance and beefiness.
I'm simple. I'm a ribeye guy, so it's pretty good, and I really like the tri-tip too.
Yeah, I'd never heard of a Denver steak. It's my favorite cut, 100%.
Can I say one
Yeah,
more
go
thing?
ahead.
Reid talked about the tomahawk there, and then Jimmy, it made me think of Jimmy here in collaboration and things. In my opinion, this my opinion is collaborate with marketing folks. Whoever the genius was that came up with the idea of we're going to sell you a bunch of bone and some of the cover fat and all this good stuff, and we're going to charge more for it. I mean, the tomahawk is a genius marketing ploy. I'll just call it that, but it works. I'm kind of jealous, really, that I didn't think of it. But
Yeah, you're selling bone, right? It's hard to do. I think we have a question right here.
I had one more thought, which is that sometimes the best Wagyu steak is just the right amount, because sometimes I think that, and I've even been at some of our customers, like restaurants we work with, that you put out like 20 ounces of like a super high marbling strip loin, and it's just like me and one other person. It's too much. So I think it's like you need to adjust your expectations and talk with your customer about how they're using it, because they will have sticker shock when they see that their ribeye they're paying is $100 for 1 pound. But that can be shared by a couple. It doesn't need to be consumed by one person. So it's not necessarily that we need to worry about eating too much Wagyu. I don't think that's a problem either, but it's like we need to understand it's different than other beef.
Yeah, we have a question right here, or right here? Okay, we'll start over here.
Hi, good morning. I think the panel has answered a lot of my questions about quality and pricing. When we were blanketing the price of the 30% of superior pricing Wagyu had when we got into this 4.5 years ago, I feel like that's not there anymore. And why? Why can't we raise the bar as conventional meat is going up in price? Why is Wagyu not following suit?
Well, I think some of it, historically, the Wagyu pricing doesn't move fast. Okay, it's more steady, and partly because of where we're at right now with the imports, that we have a lot of pressure on our price side of things to keep product moving. What I hear back from the F1 distributors is anything over $30, they have a hard time moving right now. Doesn't matter quality or anything like that, and that's on a volume basis, right? It's not on in a micro situation. So I think that's one part of the reason, and so then there's options out there. You know, they can move everything but the middle meats, right? I mean, that's the tenderloin, I've been told, is the hardest thing to move. Well, that's historically been our best option, right, for easiest part to move. If we look over the years, the middle meats were easy. Then what we're going to do with the end meats? So I think it is. There's still some price sensitivity in terms of in the F1 world at least, because in the full blood deal you're dealing with a little bit of different consumer. But from at least what I hear back is once we get over that $30 mark on a price per pound, there's a lot of pushback on that, and I think that's probably because of the competition that's in the marketplace right now on the imports. Does that answer your question at all? Ish.
I would echo what Jim said, but I would say that it kind of gets back to my thought about there's maybe not as much dynamicy in the top end of the market, and so like Jim said, you get an issue with like tenderloins. Maybe we start to build up because they're too expensive. So if you think about the prime beef, let's say trading for $17 or $18 a pound, I think was what we saw yesterday. The gentleman from Agro Beef had the reporting up on the wall, and it's like, well, that's a $70 or $65 steak on the plate. Our equivalent will be like $150. So I think to go up to $200, and maybe there's some price sensitivity when you get to the real top end of the market.
I would probably say it's more of on an individual basis. If one producer needs to raise their prices because of the location that they're at, then they do it. If one producer is able to maintain the prices and still keep a profit from the location that they're at, then the prices will stay the same. We haven't really had to raise our prices too much in our store or on the small food service side that we do. I think it's more on an individual basis and kind of where you are at in the country, because different states have different poverty levels. So it's just what your customer, I guess, area is what would be important to understand first.
I think if you're dealing with a commodity and it's commodity pricing, you have to vary your prices up and down, and your commercial market is going up and down. And if you're tagged to that, then maybe you're at a more of a commodity pricing. If you are elevated above that, an ultra premium product, you can't expect to maintain that margin all the time. It varies. Your margin varies above what commodity price beef may be. And that's a good thing. So I think it's a good thing if you have a price point and a margin on the average that's higher, but we shouldn't necessarily say, hey, all the Angus guys are making a bunch of money now, we need to make a bunch more. I don't think that's how economics work. So I think we should be, to a certain point, we should be thankful that we aren't having to vary up and down as much, but obviously you still need to have a premium. Otherwise, why are you doing Wagyu? Do something easier, right? I think that's, I guess, if I don't do a lot of buying of a Rolls Royce, but you don't see 0% financing offered for Rolls Royce, right? That's a premium product. If you want it, you have the money, you buy it. If somebody's wanting to buy a cheaper vehicle or whatever, you see specials all the time. So if we can stay above the commodity pricing, that's the benefit of being in the breed. Obviously, it's a good breed and it tastes good and all that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, if you're not making money more than the next thing, you may as well do something easier.
I think we have a question right there. And then Ray, we'll get to you.
Good morning. I'm a third-generation butcher. I've been doing it for 50 years. We own one of the premier butcher shops in Lake Tahoe. What the hell is a Denver steak? I mean, all these new names they're coming up with. Is that the bavette? No. I didn't know what a bavette steak was until we were at Jerry's, and they're showing how they take it off a clod, and which is absolutely ridiculous because the time and effort it takes you to get that muscle off that piece of meat and put it out there. It's all about money, time and money, and you're not making enough money off that. Instead of leaving it on the clod itself, you get more for that cross rib as far as the labor goes and time, because the meat business is all about time and labor. It comes down to seconds. But I keep hearing this Denver steak, and I don't know what the hell anybody's talking about.
So the Denver steak comes from the serratus ventralis muscle. It's in the chuck under underblade. Is that right? Chuck flap. It's also the same muscle that ventures into the short rib. So the boneless short rib, I think I have that right. So yeah, except without the ribs. Yeah. So it's pretty sizable muscle. And if you're dealing with a old Charlet, you know, probably isn't worth you hacking around to get it. But if you're dealing with a Wagyu, it's amazing stuff, and shouldn't be forgotten. It's probably the easiest, higher valued cut that has volume on a Wagyu carcass. And I'm not a butcher, but speaking of collaboration again, the butchers can learn a lot about what you can do with this carcass to then sell to the consumer and, of course, educate the restaurant industry as well. But does that help?
All right.
Just-
Go ahead.
I think it's also, in Japan, they process these animals very differently than how you would process a normal Angus, Charolais, or Hereford. To where I think over there, their remainage of ground is more, I think, 50 to 60 pounds. I think it might be a little bit less. And here we're still seeing anywhere from 250, 300 pounds of ground beef, right? So there's still a whole lot of other different ways that we can cut the animal up and sell it to as different cuts to both restaurants and to consumers. So I agree with you that it's all about time and money, but to figure out how we can process the animal a little bit more differently to where we don't have so much trim, then I think as producers, we would be able to raise our profit margins to sell cuts at a higher price than just selling trim.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that my simplest answer is that the Denver steak is a steak you want to grill, and the short ribs is a cut that you want to braise. And if you braise the Denver cut, with Wagyu at least, it's like it becomes mushy and it's not a great experience. Whereas if you grill the short rib, sometimes it's tough and still chewy, even with the Wagyu. So that's like the differentiation for those two for me. But I agree with Ray that that we had this presentation in Fort Collins, was so interesting, and there's a big opportunity, I think, for as we approach a really super premium market that we maybe already are at, but like to go further is to have an experience in a retail environment where you're getting a very bespoke experience where you're very nuanced on the cuts like they do in Japan, but we're not. I don't think we're still there.
Yeah, it's kind of that balance between the traditional American way of processing cattle and then introducing maybe a little bit of Japanese, and where do we fit? All right, Ray.
Yeah, I know we're probably a little already over time, but
No,
I
you
just
got
wanted to end on this note that, I mean, everybody in this room is producing a superior product, and people are looking for a better experience, and they're looking for opportunities to, they cook and they film it, and then they put it on TikTok, and they want their friends. Everybody's looking for an elevated experience, and they're willing to pay for it. And I think the tomahawk is probably the best example of that, because it isn't the greatest cut, but it's the showstopper. And so what happens is, we have these influencers who have now they're demanding our tomahawks with Talladega. Ray's hooked up with the Macklemore boys. He's hooked up with some other influencers. All they want are tomahawks, and because they can make a show with it, and they're willing to pay for it. And in Talladega, when we did a special online deal with them, we sold 67 tomahawks, 3.5 pounds, for $275 a piece in less than an hour. And if you go to in Australia, Scott De Bruin with Mayura, he has a tasting room. He sells tomahawks for plated, $1,000 a tomahawk. I never thought they'd come to the United States, but now there are restaurants in New York and in Houston, Maestros, they're selling tomahawks for $1,000 a piece, plated. And that's because it's a showstopper, it's an experience, and that's what people are willing to pay for.
Yeah, great comment. Any more on that? Oh, we have another question back here. Probably last one, and then I'll let these guys kind of do final thoughts.
I'm a very small producer, but what I really guess I don't understand from you guys, and maybe it's my own ignorance, the most valuable cut on a hog is not a tenderloin. if you look at the grocery store, you look at bacon. I don't ever see beef bacon on the shelf. And we're such a small operator, we only sell wholes and halves. But every time we slaughter a calf, that customer gets a quarter-pound package of bacon, of beef bacon. The feedback we've gotten is that some people cannot tolerate pork bacon, but there's a difference in the fat, and obviously it makes a difference in your digestive system, at least for some individuals. So I'm just wondering, is there any pursuit of beef bacon being on the shelf?
Do any of y'all do beef bacon?
We do beef bacon in our store. We finally started selling it. I wanted to experiment with it first for a little bit before I felt comfortable selling it to in our store, and the feedback we have gotten has been very, very tremendously good. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a very good alternative to pork bacon, and it offers kind of that healthier perspective of it, to where you're still eating bacon, but it has those healthy fats that we all love. And I think it's definitely something that we're trying to push more to people. It's something that we serve for our breakfast. When we do burgers, we do Wagyu. We don't do pork bacon anymore. We do our own Wagyu bacon. And I think we kind of got the idea of now wanting to do smoked Wagyu belly and see how that comes out, and just trying to offer different things with it. So I think you bring up a good point that there's some other cuts that we still don't know about, and I think bacon is definitely one of them, and I think it'll make a push.
Yeah, beef bacon's great. The mashed potato bar thing, potato bar the other night, or last night, there was pork bacon and beef bacon or Wagyu bacon there. At least when I got to it, I had to scrape the bottom to get the beef bacon, and there was still plenty of the pork bacon there. So I don't know, it was just my luck, or everybody in here kind of prefers one or the other. But yeah, beef bacon's great, but how many things can you do? One thing that's kind of a corollary of that, as Ray alluded to, here in Japan, they totally do the carcass different, and they have very little grind. They do a lot of thin slice, and some of it paper thin. You take some of these rounds and things like that, you can slice that paper thin to get it tender enough to chew, and now drop that in a pan just for a second, and essentially it's a bacon. That works, and it's amazing. So I don't think it always has to be the plate or other common places the bacon may come from, but anyway, there's a lot of innovation out there.
Okay. I wanted to thank all these guys for coming up here, all these wonderful producers, and maybe give one last piece of advice, what to do and maybe what not to do. That might be more important. Jim, I'm going to start with you.
The list is long on what not to do, so we won't go there, but from my experience, but just really appreciate, we have a lot of people that put in a lot of time and energy and effort to create this industry over the last 30, 40 years, and I want to say thank you to y'all. There's quite a few of them out here, and I just want to say thank you about that. So.
I would say what to do is to kind of know what your North Star is, and kind of point everything in that direction and go for it as much as you can, and don't meander too much, but be really pointed and going in the direction that you all decide is the direction for your operation, and try to get better at it every day.
So I would definitely say patience and planning is very important. By the time when mama cow is pregnant to when it's finally at the butcher shop is almost 3 years, or a little bit more, a little bit less. And that is a long time, to wait or to see a return on the investment. And just know that it's not just planning for the next year, or planning for the second year. It's 3, 5, 10 years in advance that you have to be prepared for, because what the decision you make today will affect the supply chain that you will have later, right? Because it's all about timing, it's all about patience, and just be open to know that you don't know everything and ask questions. You know, my experience has always been that everyone that I've always talked to has been very, very open, wanting to teach, wanting to share their mistakes, at what didn't work for them and what worked for them. And it's just, we wouldn't be here without the friends that we've made and the relationships that we've made.
So we've mostly talked about beef here today, and I think that's a good thing. The breed's here because of the beef. 10, 15 years ago, I don't know if we could hardly find this many people. Michael Goodell's out here. He was raising beef a long time ago. There's not too many people 10 years ago that was even producing much Wagyu beef, especially the full blood end of things. And so this is great. We have people that are producing beef, and that's really what it's all about. So to that point, the commercial industry out there, roughly 10% of cattle producers are seed stock breeders. 90% are in the supply chain making the beef. We need to be thinking that way too. If you don't have a beef program, you better have some really special genetics that nobody else has if you're going to live off of genetics only. So it's all about the beef. Focus on the beef. Have a beef market, some way to take care of those beef animals. So with that in mind, since we talked so much about beef, I just wanted to mention again genetics. I think in the future, and starting now, focus on the cows. If we don't have good cows, you don't end up with good calves. And you can take I'm going to just say average marbling cow, and you can outperform those genetics because the cow is a good cow and produces a good calf and takes care of the calf and so on. And marbling. We can't have this breed without the marbling, but it's not all about the marbling.
Balance, right? Go ahead.
Just also wanted to add diversification. One thing that we've started doing is we started hosting elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and some universities to come out to do field trips. And all these schools, public schools and private schools, have funds to pay for their students to come do on-site learning experiences. Some of the stuff that we've done is just simply giving a ranch tour, talking about grass, the types of grass, the biology of the cow, the process of what it takes for IVF or for AI. And even at night, what we've done with the universities is the astrology department come out, look for essentially places that don't have a lot of light pollution, and they don't want to go to the public parks because there's cars driving around or people just come and shine light. So it takes about 45 minutes for them, for their eyes to get accustomed, and they enjoy the peace and quiet. So it's just another way to kind of diversify and not just solely rely on either cattle or beef.
So reach out to your local astrology club.
There's a long time, I think the longest breeding full-blood beef producer in the world, down in Australia there, Mr. Blackmore. One of his mottos is find something that makes money and learn to like it. And that sounds kind of cold, but if it's not making money, do something to adjust.
All right. Well, wonderful panel, you guys. A round of applause. Big thank you. All right, next we have our AGM, and they're going to set up for that. So I think there's coffee out there if you want to grab a cup, and make sure if you're an eligible voter, make sure you're here.